It just was a beautiful Oklahoma morning.
Something odd, it was just not right.
This is a News on 6 special report.
The death toll will be very, very significant.
Our hearts are literally broken for these federal workers and the children and their families.
Indeed, terrorism has struck in the heart of the United States.
The wounds of this tragedy are deep, but the courage and the faith and determination of the people of Oklahoma City are even deeper.
That's the Oklahoma Standard.
We remember 25 years later.
April 19th, 1995 changed Oklahoma forever.
168 people, including 19 children, were murdered when Timothy McVeigh used a truck bomb to blow up the north side of the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City.
In the hours, days, and weeks following that massive explosion, we learned so many lives would never be the same.
This explosion was at the Federal Building. All right, buddy. I've got 6 to 7 people down. I have 2 people buried under rubble. We got glass and windows everywhere. We got people stranded on the 2nd floor jumping out windows.
We gotta find his brother.
And we got the child daycare center.
The whole place blew up, man.
Move out!
Seemed like the whole world ended.
All of a sudden there was a loud bang and everything went dark.
My initial thoughts were just horror. How could something so horrific happen?
About a third of the building has been blown away, and you can see just smoke and debris and fire on the ground, just devastating.
The ceiling fell in and the walls fell in, and there was nothing left.
Everybody out of this area, move towards 3 blocks.
And the car, let's go! 3 blocks away, let's go! Come on, hurry!
Pictures just doesn't do it justice. It left us speechless.
This is as bad as this town's ever seen.
I just hope they find out who was responsible.
That they're arranging a morgue area.
I think there are survivors in there? Yeah, we're working in the section. We've got survivors.
It was all those first responders, all the efforts that they made to try to not only rescue people who were alive, but then recover those who didn't survive.
There are people still buried in there that are alive.
We're still hoping and praying that she's all right.
I heard both of my babies scream, "Mama." When I was screaming for help, I was screaming, "Somebody help me."
Even in those first few hours, people were wanting to pay tribute and remember those who were lost.
The building blew. People fell down to the basement area.
And I was just probably about 4 or 5 steps from where it ripped it out. The people I just said good morning to was gone, and the whole building was gone.
I just want to tell the guy who saved me, thank you so much. If it wouldn't have been for him, I wouldn't have been here.
I have flashbacks about the people screaming and hollering, wanting help.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for getting her out of there. At least she's out of there.
The force of the explosion was so mighty that 4 blocks away, glass was wedged into the hood of this car.
It was wall-to-wall coverage on the news for weeks and weeks and weeks.
We will find them, we will convict them, and we will seek the death penalty for them.
It's killed so many people, hurt so many lives.
There's no words that adequately explain what it's like. I've never seen it before, and I hope to God I never have to see it again.
Many of the victims worked for the federal government, but others were just running errands. Leanne Taylor shows us how 25 years later, one man's legacy lives on through his wife and 5 children.
Ivan Martinez was only 10 days old when his father was killed in the Oklahoma City bombing. Reverend Gilbert Martinez had taken his 4 older children to school that morning and then headed to the Social Security office to help a couple in his church. His wife Martha had planned on going too and would have taken Ivan with her.
My father said, "You stay, the kids need you here, you need to stay here." But she had me ready to go. She was ready to go.
My mom was left at home, a little bitter or mad because she couldn't go with him. And luckily, she did stay home that day and didn't didn't go with my father, or else we would be alone.
While Martha knew her husband had been killed, it was almost a week before the children were told.
They told us the news, and that's when all the world changed to us. The perspective of life completely changed.
I just remember my sisters crying, and after me and my brother, the oldest, me and Brian heard the news, we just looked at each other and we couldn't believe it.
She was on the floor crying, and they immediately took us to another room, and they told us to just give her a minute. We didn't know what was going on, but I just remember the feeling of the room.
Martha was left alone to raise her family. She had help along the way. Her church family and friends wrapped them in their arms.
Even though this broke our family apart in so many ways, I feel like it also made us a lot stronger.
Gilbert Martinez loved his family, and he was always there for others.
He always had a smile on his face, positive, encouraging. He was a helper. He was kind, always trying to help people, and just a kind person. Growing up, Ivan would always watch my dad's preachings and videos, and we would tell him stories of how our father was. And we see a lot of my father and Ivan.
I'm always involved in philanthropy events and leadership at work and in my fraternity and in the community, so I could see where people draw the similarities for sure.
Growing up without their dad has been incredibly difficult, but they've faced the challenge together. Through birthday parties and holidays, weddings, and the birth of their own children, life has been filled with a lot of joy.
Sometimes you think the world is going to stop when a loved one is gone, but it pauses for a moment for you, and life keeps going, and you just gotta keep on moving, and have God by your side. With God, everything is possible.
Every year on April 19th, the Martinez family gathers here at the Oklahoma City National Memorial. They gather around their dad's chair to pay tribute to him.
This year will be a little different, but they say the sentiment is still the same.
Every time we go back, every year to the memorial, it's just a moment to kind of think back and say, we're blessed, and he planted a seed that's, it's growing and keeps growing. And I hope that people will never forget what happened.
First responders worked countless hours to find survivors. The only way to save one woman who was pinned beneath the rubble was for a doctor to amputate her leg with a pocket knife. Amanda Taylor has their incredible story.
It's called Condition Black.
Building that are not moving, they're unconscious and not moving.
As first responders went in searching for survivors, they began to hear the screams of a young woman. The frantic voice coming from what was once the first floor Social Security Administration office.
Somebody help me, help. And they told me, and they heard me, and they said, keep screaming. I said, I'm over here, I'm over here, I'm over here.
But finding 20-year-old Dana Bradley would prove to be the easy part. Look at this picture. Notice the lower right-hand side where you barely see Dana's eyes? Her left leg's perched up. That leg's fine, but the other has a piece of rebar through it.
There was cold water coming up from the busted pipes, which was freezing. I wasn't in no pain. I was in shock.
And she says it was in those moments she just knew her world had changed. You see, she didn't go to the federal building alone. She had brought her mother, Cheryl Hammond, along with her 3-year-old daughter, Peachlyn, and 3-month-old baby boy, Gabrion. They were going to get him a Social Security card. Her sister had joined them as well, and she survived, but Dana says when she couldn't hear the voices of her mom or her 2 babies, she knew they were gone.
You have this perfect life, and then all of a sudden somebody decided to just wipe it away from you.
All the while, Dana was going in and out of consciousness, and her leg was still trapped. Meanwhile, over at OU Medical Center, Dr. Andy Sullivan, who was the chairman of orthopedics at the time, got a call from one of his colleagues.
Dr. Tuggle had gotten through on a civil defense phone and said that there was a lady that the only way they were going to be able to save her was to amputate her leg.
So he quickly grabbed some tools and a rope.
He said, honey, the only way we can get you out is if we're going to have to cut your leg off. And I said, do it.
All of a sudden they told us we had to evacuate. There was a potential other bomb that they had found in the building.
I was like, please don't leave me, please don't leave me. And the guy, one of the guys, he was literally like crying. It's very hard.
Another bomb, move back! But once the all clear was given, Dr. Sullivan made his way back in. He got to work. But his emergency tools began to fail. And that's when he reached for his pocket knife.
Fortunately, I had it with me. I don't know what I would have done because the blades would break and get dull and they just wouldn't cut.
Dr. Sullivan did his job. I told him what to do. Cut it off. It all means what you have to do to get me out of here.
And that he did with the pocket knife now displayed in the OKC National Memorial Museum. We've kept up with Dana throughout the years, like when she got her first prosthetic and when she spoke publicly for the first time.
I tried to be strong as much as possible, but in some days I can't be strong because a piece of puzzle of your life is gone.
And now, 25 years later.
Dana, hello. You remember Dr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Hey, girl.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Dr. Sullivan and Dana have seen each other periodically over the last quarter century.
Well, honestly, she looks better than I've ever seen her. You look great.
Thanks. I feel great. I'm getting myself back healthy.
Dana, you've been very vocal on how it's affected you personally and having PTSD. What does that look like in your life?
Some days it's hard. I don't like to talk to people. I stay in my house, stay to myself. Some days I'm okay. I go out and I talk to people. Like I say, you live day by day. I mean, take a deep breath and just know that, you know, you're gonna be all right.
Gabrion D. L. Bruce, Peachland Bradley, Cheryl E. Hammond.
She admits she still struggles every year around April 19th.
When it's over, that day is over, it's like it's just lifted from you.
As for Dr. Sullivan,
So how far do you walk now to get ready for this 5K?
he's still glad he made that decision 25 years ago to put his own life at risk to save another.
I think that he made the best choice for me to go on, for me to be where I am right now.
Team 5, 419 and 95. We search for the truth, we seek justice. The courts require it, the victims cry for it, and God demands it.
25 years later, words spray painted on the old Journal record building wall are still just as powerful as the day Rocky Yardley wrote them.
Definitely takes us back to that day.
At the Oklahoma City Bombing Memorial, just feet from where the Murrah Building once stood, where Rocky, as a young Edmond crime scene investigator and bomb disposal technician, responded in the moments following the explosion.
We could see the smoke rising. Years don't change the memories. I wish they did.
Time hasn't changed much here for Rusty Pyle either.
I can still see the building standing there. I can smell that smell. I can see those sights, and I can hear those sounds.
Rusty, an Oklahoma City bomb squad lieutenant at the time, also rushed to the scene that morning. The first day, the sole mission was rescuing survivors.
The people that are there are trapped. It's a slow process as they bring them out one at a time.
We could hear screams, we could hear moans, we could hear people yelling for help. We're just trying to find them because they were under the rubble.
By day 2, the FBI had organized all emergency responders into teams. Rusty and Rocky were assigned to Team 5, a group of about 60 first responders from all over the state and country.
Their job, to search through evidence.
Everything had to be searched for a quarter of a mile away for evidence. Physical evidence from the Ryder truck, physical evidence from the device itself, the explosives that were used.
Team 5 had 3 goals.
To get everybody home, find out who did it, and then make sure these people were prosecuted.
And while the mission was clear to everyone, Rocky captured it in words.
It just kind of came to me one night. I was laying on the floor and at home.
With approval, he painted it on a wall that overlooked the destruction, a building he thought would be torn down, but now houses the Memorial Museum. And to this day, Rocky does not take full credit for the message.
It's one of those God things. I'm merely the handwriter.
God spoke to you that night?
Yeah. Sometimes you have to listen.
When Rocky painted these words back in 1995, he thought they'd only be around for a couple of weeks. He had no idea 25 years later, this message would still be a symbol of strength for our state.
That's the difference between God's words and man's words. You know, his lasts a lot longer than ours.
Together, Team 5 has repainted the words a few times in black, although Rocky originally spray painted them in red, the color used to mark the buildings after they'd been searched. Now, thousands of people stop by the wall each year to take in the words that are a lasting tribute to the past and a powerful reminder for the future.
I want those kids to know what happened down here and why it happened and how it can be prevented.
Rocky and Rusty are both retired now and forever honored that during Oklahoma's darkest days, they could make a difference.
I'm proud to be part of Team 5.
That'll be on my obituary.
Yep, Team 5.
Member of Team 5.